here I am talking about alchemy again, and today I wanted to talk about a point that I find really interesting and really technical and very important when it comes to performing your own alchemical rituals or magic or manifestations, whatever it is that you feel is appropriate for you. It's all magic, and it's actually the root of all science in many ways. And the point that I wanted to stress is that alchemy uses one thing and another, mixes it, and makes something else. For example, hydrogen and two oxygens make a water molecule. And that is a way to think about how this alchemical mixture of thought and action create a end result, which is the magic. It's sperm and ova create an embryo, which becomes a child, which is magic. And so that's very important to remember. Another little side note on this, and that's also wrapped up into it, is that in the emerald tablets and within a lot of alchemical structure, with this whole taking one thing and blending it with another, oftentimes it is opposites or things that maybe don't seem like they would mix that actually do make very strong magic. In fact, I would say that what's stressed in some of the alchemy texts is that, say you've, you're wanting to master your mind, and that process itself is alchemy, because you're really wanting to change your thought processes, your habits, and all those things, which are very difficult to change without a very strong willpower. And willpower takes practice with the mind and the physical, the mind and the action, over and over to be able to create a brand new habit. But say you've never, so this is what is kind of stressed is it's all fine, dandy, and wonderful to become a strong magician who performs alchemy through really wholesome means. And what I mean by that is, like practicing yoga and eating right and focusing your energy on the positive and having, rituals where your mind, meditating and doing rituals that, all focus on, the positive elements, the healthy, wholesome, positive. But if we know anything about science or just, the nature of things, is the more that you get into the text, it really shows you that the shadow side of yourself is as important as the light side. And I'm not saying go out there and do some wicked things or go out and, get addicted, but it's important to understand the shadow as much as it is important to embrace and become the light. Because without shadow, there is no light. Without darkness, there is no light. And without knowledge of darkness, you would be a lot more susceptible to attacks from the dark. You need to understand your opponent. And the thing is, it's not really an opponent in ourselves, because our shadow is really part of us. Our ego is part of us. You don't want to kill your ego. Anybody who says that they're, they've killed their ego, or they've, they don't have an ego problem or anything anymore. An ego is very important. An ego is made up of light and dark, but an ego is important, it's like a vessel on the waters of life, and the whatever you call the person who the sailor, but, the one in charge. The sailor, the person who's driving the boat, is like your soul, your spirit, and the ego is the vessel, and you've got to negotiate with that ego and fix its fucked upness on stormy sea, and you've got to work with it to get from point A to B on an ocean. And the ego, the boat, the vessel, will oftentimes want to control you. It will want to go with the flow, with different flows of the ocean, and yet if you let it just go with any type of flow, you're not going to be navigating. You're going to be, navigated by the vessel, and which is navigated by the waters. The water being life experience, and so you've got to work with the boat. You can't work against it. You can't, push it to go where you want it to go when the winds are high, and you've got to sort of go with the wind and go with the water. You've got to give it, ease up here and there. So that's a little bit of an example. If you've never had alcohol before in your life, I don't condone going out there and getting drunk every night for 2 years or 2 months to just figure out alcohol. But I do recommend a little poison to be able to understand. I do recommend trying everything. I really do. I really recommend trying everything, as long as you're listening to your intuition, listening to yourself. I do recommend at least trying everything and getting to know the dark. And I don't just mean your own shadow, but darkness in the world. And it can also make you very much more empathic if you tend not to be empathetic. I tend to be pretty empathetic. So it's an easy thing for me, but I still really, really make it a point to be in places where people have a lot of darkness and are often very unconscious of it, or consciously interested in just the dark, and or can't get out of the dark even though they're conscious of it and just cannot. Because I really feel that I enjoy understanding that the nature there, because that is the nature of what needs the most love, needs the most understanding, needs the most illumination. And I like to go there, and I don't often illuminate, but that is my intent, that if I can illuminate in the dark, that is what I am here for, in a way. And when we talk about alchemy, in fact, I'm just going to give you my example, and then I'm going to end this video on my example, because this is a great example. It's really great. And I can't completely explain it, but I was raised really strictly a certain type of Christian, really, really strict, and I did not imbibe or really experiment with anything until I was almost 30. And so I didn't have much experience with partying or the dark side of that. I didn't understand it one bit. So finally, when I began to be interested in awakening and the awakening process and such, I really was interested in, because I am really empathic at my heart and soul. I was really interested in going those places for the purpose of understanding it and understanding where sorrow and sadness comes from. And I certainly did get really deep down. And for me, it was alcohol. It was actually just beer and wine, not really, hard alcohol or whatever, not like an intense, life-threatening level of alcoholism. But I did become an alcoholic. And it was intense enough that I started to have panic attacks and just a lot of physical side effects and emotional side effects and mental mental state side effects. And it was horrifying. It was horrible. what so much fun and partying and imbibing and habitual use of alcohol to relax after a long day of work and never having rest, just from work to drink to sleep to work to drink to weekend to party, just, you know, and no rest and no stepping back. And I went full on, because I'm an all or nothing person, started to experience the side effects so strongly that I knew it was time for me to not drink as much. And here's the key. You know, a lot of people, everybody to each their own, a lot of people, you know, will go to Alcoholics Anonymous or quit drinking for good and not touch alcohol when they've had maybe the level of intense experiences that I have had. And all aspects. I got a DUI, and I, you know, it was really tore apart a few of my relationships too. It was embarrassing, you know. So it wasn't just physical symptoms in my body. But I knew inside myself that I was stronger than just having to eliminate that substance out of my life. And it's hard to explain that to people when you're having a problem. You know, I'm stronger than that, you know. It sounds really dumb to people and to yourself. But I knew that I didn't want the alcohol to determine whether or not I could have alcohol or not. I did not want the alcohols to possess my strength. I wanted to be able to be strong enough to not drink too much, not drink too often. And yet, with all the pressure from everybody, I tried probably over 24 times, literally 24 times, to stop, to quit. And each time, maybe it would last from about either a few hours or a day or a few days, and only as much as 3 weeks. So 21 days was the limit. I couldn't go more than 21 days without a drink. So I decided to stop trying to quit, stop trying to, you know, tell myself that I needed to fucking just stop. I knew that I did not want to go to traditional counseling, and I still don't. Again, this is just me, but I don't go to traditional psychologists. I don't like to go to traditional therapy because for me it doesn't work. Not fully in the correct way. I stopped trying to quit and knew that when I was ready, I was going to. And stopped worrying about it. I stopped beating myself up in my mind about it. I stopped negative talk about it. And I just did what I needed to do. And knew that the moment would come when I could find, because I knew deep down inside it was not the alcohol. The alcohol, the spirits had attached themselves to a really deeply hidden layer upon layer underneath, somewhere in my soul, mind, spirit, everything. It had drawn up an emotion, or a few emotions, but that were very specific to some things in my life that I did not want to address, and I had not addressed for decade upon decade, at least 2 and close to 3 decades. You'll see why I say 3, because I was about, 30 something, but this stemmed from childhood. I mean, like infancy, one of them, and it attached to those emotions and brought them. And that really just was the reason why I became so dependent, is because these feelings came up, and when I started drinking, and I didn't want to feel them. I did not want to feel these emotions that came from long, long back. And finally, I went in a non-traditional way, and I used MDMA to help open up a session of therapy with a non-traditional therapist. And in that session where I was able to freely talk, because I started to become really aware that there was stuff down there that I needed to talk about, I was able to release the huge shame, guilt, tragic proportions of hurt that I felt about two different things in my life that plagued me because they were the two closest things to me in my life. And I was able to talk about it. And after that, I felt really good. I didn't think much about anything. After that, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later, I realized that I hadn't gotten drunk in 2 or 3 weeks. And then a month or two later, I realized that I didn't care to even drink alcohol too much. I mean, I would. I still do. But I never get drunk, and it just had gone away. And so what I had performed upon myself was, 1, a total acceptance, unconditional love for myself and even myself with a problem. And 2, a conscious pulling of the root of the problem that existed underneath my substance abuse. And then I had literally performed, because the one was a thought of releasing, shameful thoughts about myself and total acceptance. And then I was able to go down after total acceptance and pull the root out of the weed of the issue. And then from there, I actually took actions to correct with the two very close things some of the issues I've had, and been able to talk about it more fully and openly with other people. And in a way, I was healed. It healed a part of me that had been weakened by unconsciousness during substance abuse. So this here really kind of spells out that using the light in the dark, you've got to go into your dark shadows, but with a very strong light presence of all acceptance and unconditional love to intermix and mingle and make an even stronger substance. And you wouldn't know that until you at least are able to face your shadow, or able to face your demons, able to face the parts about you that that you're shamed about. You don't have to tell everybody, but, you ought to think that itself is an alchemical process of, the part that I'm still focusing on in these videos would be, I really want I want people to begin to be strong in their willpower. And you're not going to be strong in your willpower until you have a feeling or sense of empowerment within yourself, which is belief, love, and acceptance of yourself. So that process is key, number 1. And don't be afraid of the dark. Learn to see in the dark. Owl is a really, really, really wonderful, amazing example of an animal who has mastered seeing in the dark. Mastered it. In fact, it's evolved itself that its wings are in fact silent. Call upon owl medicine. Get the sacred medicine, the animal medicine book with the animal cards. Start working with owl medicine. Go buy, find an owl feather and start uncovering the deception of telling yourself that you're not worthy enough, that you don't accept yourself enough, and start seeing in the dark, your dark, to be able to see and cultivate, to see in the dark, to be able to see that darkness, accept it, and cultivate the light from it. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I'm going to continually try to get better at doing all this, but the focus is alchemy, and you all are and have the potential to be alchemists. Much love.